In this chapter of One Piece, we have Rocks vs. Roger, and even Rocks vs. King Harald, along with the reveal of Shanks' mother. The cover page of One Piece chapter 1158, titled Rocks vs. Harald, features Yamato, Kikunojo, and Cho leaving the shrine they were paying their respects to. But instead of this bodiless grave being for Jigoro like we suspected, it's actually in honor of Kozuki Moria. So it seems like Moria was born in the West Blue, but was taken in as an honorary member of the Kozuki royal family and was raised in Ringo. And with his original crew, the Gecko Pirates, he was apparently the Pirate of Justice. Which is ironic given how he eventually became a warlord of the sea, serving marine justice. We also knew that his crew had been crushed by Kaido, and he was the only survivor. In the case of his samurai-coded culture, being the lone survivor may have been very shameful. So he ran away so he wouldn't have to face his countrymen or Kaido's wrath. And as a member of the Kozuki family, it's possible that Moria might be able to read poneglyphs. This would explain why the Five Elders wanted Doflamingo to take Moria out during Marineford. And now I really want Moria to join Cross Guild. From there, our flashback continues with the Roger Pirates. One of the crew members was calling out to Roger. He told the captain that Shaki opened up an unbelievable store on Hachinosu. But instead of getting excited, Roger was busy pouting. The guys were afraid they would never see her again after she gave up her position as Empress. But now that they knew her location, they were ready to get going. Although Sunbelle seemed skeptical about that, since Hachinosu belongs to Rocks. While Gabon was trying to figure something out. He put an arm around Rayleigh. He was pretty sure that Roger had been in a bad mood since he and Rayleigh spoke in private. The first mate was sweating. Gabon wanted to know what they spoke about, but Rayleigh's lips were sealed. At the time, Rayleigh went to Roger with something he didn't want to say in front of the other men. Something he needed to discuss one-on-one with his captain. Because something major happened during their last interaction with the Kuja Pirates just before Shaki's resignation. Roger was frustrated. He figured that something must have been up with Shaki back then, but assumed that she wasn't feeling well. When she quit being a pirate, he was worried that it was related to her health. But what she gave to Rayleigh threw all of that out of the window. The first mate admitted that he was speechless. He received a love letter from the most sought-after beauty in the world. Her desire for him to claim her. Roger couldn't believe that his first mate wouldn't be interested. And Rayleigh honestly was interested, but didn't want to be tied down, which only pissed Roger off more. But I understand why he wouldn't want to compromise his way of life. And now, in front of his crew, Roger found his resolve and refused to give up. His sudden enthusiasm surprised them. Rayleigh just smiled in the face of his captain's optimism. Way too many friendships have been broken over this sort of thing, so that must have felt like a weight being lifted. Roger announced that plundering is a pirate's life, and they're the type of pirates who don't stop until they claim their prize. Which is a weird way to talk about a person. The crew wondered if he was still talking about Shaki and laughed. But since they were headed to Rocks' island, they assumed that he must be. The way they saw it, everyone had an equal chance at winning Shakuyaku's heart. So they just needed to put themselves out there. In better spirits, Roger called on Max Marks for a meal, which was already prepared in advance. So now we know that he was their cook. A bit of time would pass and bring us to the Holy Land 40 years ago. The Five Elders were meeting with Vigarland Garling and calling him impatient for wanting to discuss their next native hunting event since the last one was so recent. Even so, Garling and his fellow knights stopped at a certain island while completing an assignment. The place was unaffiliated with the world government, but possessed a unique culture. They actually tried to offer them membership into the world government, but the natives refused. The abundance of their natural resources would certainly be a boon on its own. However, the knights also made a major and totally unexpected discovery on the island. Something that Garling was sure Imu would be pleased by. So in 2 years, he strongly suggested that they hold their next hunt on God Valley. Which definitely makes me wonder how far we'll be going with this flashback. Although Loki is telling Haruden and Luffy what happened in the past right now, this is not included. The main point of what he's supposed to be telling them is what happened to King Harald at the end of his life. After that, we move to Shaki's rip-off bar on Hachinosu, and the line to get in was extremely long, not to mention very expensive. So expensive, in fact, that if you couldn't afford it, you could work it off with 2 years of unpaid labor. Shaki's beauty is easily one of the most overpowered things we've ever seen in this series. She was in the middle of serving some customers. One of them came all the way from the North Blue. He heard all about Shaki's wonderful cooking and drinks. Shaki appreciated the compliment, but she made it clear that she wasn't going to personally cook anything for them. Shakuyaku had a chef handling the food, and since they were out of whiskey, she was switching it to cheap rum instead. The patrons seemed to enjoy her bad behavior. She still called it top quality whiskey, and they all applauded her terrible service. Shaki spoke to a grinning Rox. She claimed to be a bit sad that his smile wasn't for her anymore. Before then, Rox hadn't even noticed her. Big Mom laughed in triumph. She had the same suspicion, and chalked it up to the power of a woman's intuition. Rox really didn't want to talk about it, at least not to them. Whitebeard had no idea what was going on, which made Stussy call him a fool. She could also tell that Rox was in love with a different woman. In fact, he seemed to be smiling like he was expecting a child. But before that could go any further, the Roger Pirates loudly entered the bar. That caught Shaki's attention. Roger and Rox immediately got in each other's faces. This wasn't the first time that Rox had to make it clear to Roger that Hachinosu is his territory. But since fighting wasn't allowed in Shaki's bar, Rox would just have to deal with it. Rox wondered how they even got past the long line. All those pirates were knocked out. Roger claimed to have hardly noticed them and told everyone to get drinking. And Whitebeard decided to leave once the noisy Roger pirates showed up. They tried to put the bill on Whitebeard's tab, but he made sure that it stayed on Rox's. After that, Shaki whispered to Roger, asking him where Rayleigh was. Roger told him to tag along, but apparently the guy wasn't feeling well, so he was taking a nap on the ship. Gloriosa interrupted the conversation by leaping onto Roger. She really missed seeing him and wanted to be on his ship. For any other crew, that would be a treacherous statement. But Rox's crew certainly didn't come together because of loyalty. Roger refused her advances yet again. Apparently, he's not into lovey-dovey women who throw themselves at him. Although, if Shaki asked, it'd be a different story. Something that didn't make any sense to Gloriosa. But Shaki just wasn't interested in Roger and was pouting about Rayleigh's absence. Roger was frustrated by his defeat and was ignoring the hand that was gently caressing his face. He tried to distract himself and shouted that he wanted to drink with Whitebeard. Big Mom let him know that Newgate already left. Internally, Roger really wished that Rayleigh would have just come along. At the same time, Shaki was on the Oro Jackson singing Bing Sake. She sighed before tumbling over, and I assume that this is an attempt to get Rayleigh's attention. Folks shouted about how she fainted. They still called her an empress and wanted to help, but Gloriosa would not let them get near her. Under Shaki's rules, anyone who went to Hachinosu to visit her bar would be given safe passage, and not even the strongest pirates were willing to break those rules. Again, her beauty is just way too overpowered. Even if Rox wasn't interested in her anymore, Shaki could probably turn his own crew against him. So not even he could afford to cross her. But back at sea, there were no such restrictions. And when it came to true pirating, these guys were nothing to play around with. Later, there was a collision of Conqueror's Haki within Elbaf's realm of the dead. Loki was doing his best to hold onto a tree, but the force of the blows broke the massive plant. The oversized animals scattered in fear. Haruden was there too and was stunned by what he saw. King Harald was fighting Rox. The two men collided and were both forced several paces back. They were both in rough shape. Rox called out Harald's obedience to the world government. The Giant King admitted to being conflicted about it. He questioned if this was really something worth killing his own friend over. That only upset Rox more, since in the end, he decided to bow the knee and be used as their tool. Rock swung down on Harald's guard. He expressed that the world government only sees the giants as a military asset. The foolish king was fighting for them to become war slaves. He questioned Harald's pride as a warrior and the absence of his free will. The king shoved him back and told the pirate to stop talking like he's all-knowing. Rox took the blow and was breathing hard. Harald shouted that the warriors of Elbaf created a history of violence, one that has held their culture back from ever achieving true peace. He remembered being admired by humans for being a good person, but their elders still remembered a time when human countries were attacked by giants. The desire to eliminate that stigma is what caused this situation. The kind of fear the giants spread isn't something that can so easily be forgotten. According to Harald, no matter how foolish the celestial dragons may be, they still have the power and influence to bring Elbaf into the global loop. Hearing that, Rox clutched his head and gave up. He couldn't take it anymore. He dealt a heavy blow to King Harald and called him a cowardly rat. And rightfully so. This is such a foul move by King Harald. This guy is so naive and oblivious that despite his righteous reasoning, he is very unlikable. And as far as he knows, the celestial dragons are just foolish and maybe a little corrupt. The sins of Elbaf are nowhere near as terrible as the world governments, yet he seeks their absolution. And for it, he is willing to kill a friend he has had for over 16 years. To take the life of a man who is friends with the mother of his child and is admired by his son, just for a chance to be owned by 5 grumpy slave owners. However he ends up screwing over the world government's plans needs to be epic for him to make a comeback from all this. Rox made it clear that from here on out, he wanted nothing to do with the swine of a king. He wouldn't be inviting Harald to join his crew anymore. Harald doubled down by proclaiming that he is a king. He wasn't about to let his people die by following a villain like Rox into a losing battle. But be that as it may, he could have at least asked some more questions. Rox might talk like a know-it-all, but that's just because he actually does know a lot of stuff. Ultimately, there wasn't a true conclusion to their conflict. But at the end of the day, their strange friendship had met its end, and it would be quite some time before they met one another again. And it wouldn't be until the day of a certain incident. After all that was over, Loki just read the papers for news on Rox while facing the open sea. Ida tried to tell Loki that Rox wouldn't be coming back to Elbaf, but he was sure she was lying and told her to shut it. After a moment, she asked if he wanted some juice. Loki was still upset, but he did want some juice. And our final location change brings us to 39 years ago in the West Blue with none other than God Valley. And on this peculiar island were 2 adorable twin boys. A crowd of people were admiring the babies who shared their mother's red hair. One man hoped that the infants would grow to be as bright as their mother. It certainly takes a village, so they were all ready to help out since the father of the children was away. Their mother was grateful. Then they asked if she decided what their names would be. And she had. Shanks and Shamrock. And oh man, Garling is a different kind of foul. He pulled up to God Valley and proceeded to make babies while he was still on the clock, only to then tell his superiors to schedule a hunt of the island's inhabitants, the people who raised his children, at their earliest convenience. These celestial dragons are beyond demented. And I never would have guessed that we would see baby Shanks and Shanks' mom before baby Luffy and Luffy's mom. Although Tritoma's stocks are definitely up in the mom department right now. So we'll just have to mark that down as a maybe. Somehow, God Valley managed to become even more interesting. What mission were God's Knights on in the West Blue 40 years ago? And what in the world did they find on God Valley? If you have any ideas or other thoughts in the chapter, drop it all in the comments. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.